Good evening. Hope all of y'all are doing well. Today we'll be discussing CAT 2018 VARC Slot 2K questions. So some of y'all must already be aware that CAT 2017 onwards, the number of questions in VARC has been fixed to be 34. So out of the 34 questions in slot 2, we are discussing 17 questions today with a bonus passage, of course, right? So before we get into that, guys, a quick introduction. Hi, I'm Munira Lokhandwala, and I'm Calcutta alumna, a serial 100 percentiler in the CAT, and a 99 percentiler in the GMAT. I also have a CAT verbal book published by Wiley and available on Amazon. You can find me on the Unacademy YouTube Crack CAT channel. You can also find me on the app, guys. So, आपको Play Store जाना है. You have to Google for Unacademy Learning app within that and download or install it. Within that, you have to go for the Plus CAT courses. We have close to 200 educators in just CAT itself, and these educators are from across the country. We have batches for CAT, XAT, and MAT, SNAP, and you can decide which batch you want to be a part of at which timing. So there's a lot of freedom, a lot of choice for you to choose the right sort of batch for yourself, right? Another interesting news, guys, we are also doing the National Scholarship Test for CAT every Sunday starting from 18th October. So एक Sunday का quant exam already हो चुका है. You can take these tests on our platform, and there are prizes. So the top 10 students every Sunday, guys, they get an Amazon voucher of 5,000 rupees. So top 10 students, 5,000 rupees, that's a lot of money for a lot of students. The next 10 rankers, they get 3,000 rupees. So I would really recommend कि आप ये scholarship test लीजिए, right? You will get hopefully some vouchers. Even if not that, you will get a nationwide ranking. You will get good questions to practice from. So there's only a win-win situation for you guys, right? So go ahead, enroll for this, take the scholarship test. And which subscription to go for, guys, we can talk towards the end of the session. You can use my code Munira10 to get a great discount, right? So let's start off now with the puzzle that I gave you all last time. You have a factorial into b factorial is a factorial plus b factorial plus 2 raised to c. So let's say that here a is greater than b, correct? So if I divide by b factorial, what do we get? We get a factorial is equal to a factorial divided by b factorial plus 1 plus 2 raised to c divided by b factorial. Right? This is what we get. Now we need to ensure that a factorial, when you divide by b factorial, some of the factors will get cancelled, right? And you'll be left with the other factors. So more importantly, this will be an integer. Now, because we are just factoring, we are cancelling off some numbers, numerator will have the remaining numbers. Then this is also an integer. So for this whole thing to be true, guys, this also has to be an integer. Okay, and for this to be an integer, your b factorial can only have powers of 2. Now we know that as soon as b becomes 3, right, b factorial starts having like 3, and then later on when b becomes 5, you also have 5 as a factor. So for b factorial to be only powers of 2, b can be 0, or b can be 1, or b can be 2 itself. Now since they are positive integers, b is equal to 0 is not possible. So there are only two values for b. Either b is 1 or b is 2. So let's start off with b is equal to 1. So you'll get a factorial is equal to a factorial plus 1, right, plus 2 raised to c divided by 1. Now, this is not possible, right? Because 1 plus 2 raised to c divided by 1, this is definitely positive. And you have a factorial is equal to a factorial, so this should be 0. But this cannot be 0 because, right, c is positive, 2 raised to c will be a positive number. So b is equal to 1 is also not possible. Now let's put b is equal to 2. So you have a factorial is equal to a factorial divided by 2 plus 1 plus 2 raised to c divided by 2. Right? So this is half of a factorial, which means this has to be the other half of a factorial. Right? So a factorial by 2 has to be equal to 1 plus 2 raised to c minus 1. Right? So either this is even, which will make this odd. Right? The whole sum becomes odd because 1 is odd. And a factorial divided by 2 is odd in only one case, when a is equal to 3. Right? Then this is 3. Otherwise, when you take any other, right, as soon as a becomes 4, 5, etc., a has a lot of 2's, and dividing by a 2 will only keep it even. So this happens in only one case, when a is 3. So now we can just check that, okay, this whole thing has to be 3. So 1 plus 2 raised to c minus 1 is 3, which means 2 raised to c minus 1 is 2, and c minus 1, right? Hence is 1, c is equal to 2. So this is one solution that we get, correct? That a is equal to 3, b is equal to 2, and c is equal to 2. Correct? So if you just apply this in the equation, you will see that 3 factorial, which is 6, into 2 factorial. So 12 is equal to 6 plus 2 plus 4. Correct? So ये एक solution तो निकला है. Now we have to look at the other possibility. What is the other possibility? That this whole thing कि 2 raised to c minus 1 is odd, which means 1 plus this is even. But when can 2 raised to c minus 1 be odd? There's only one case, right? When this is an integer, that this will be odd, which is 2 raised to 1 minus 1, which is 2 raised to 0, 1. So then we have only one possibility, that a factorial by 2 is equal to 1 plus 1, which is 2, and hence a factorial is equal to 4. Right? A factorial is 4. Is that possible, guys? No, we know that's not possible. Correct? So there's only one solution. A is equal to 3, B is equal to 2, and C is equal to 2. Right? Great. Let's move on to our VARC slot 2 questions. So this is the first passage, right? In 2 parts. Will a day come when India's poor can access government services as easily as drawing cash from an ATM, right? So can India easily get access to government services? No country in the world has made accessing education or health or policing, or dispute resolution as easy as an ATM. Okay? तो ये easy नहीं हो पाया है, कोई भी country में नहीं हुआ, even advanced countries में नहीं हुआ है. Okay? Because the nature of these activities requires individuals to use their discretion in a positive way. So discretion means when we have the choice of acting, right? We act according to our own thoughts, according to our own intentions. We have to use that thought, that intention in a positive way. Technology can certainly facilitate this in a variety of ways if it is seen as only one part of an overall approach, right? So technology is not the whole and soul, it's only one part. But the evidence so far in education, for instance, is that just adding computers alone does not make education any better. It just technology se education better nahi hota hai. The dangerous illusion of technology is that it can create stronger top-down accountability of service providers in implementation intensive services within existing public sector organizations. Okay, तो ये illusion है, ये सच्चाई नहीं है. You feel that it can create stronger, right? Top down accountability मतलब कि ऊपर से you can actually ask people to take responsibility. Okay? पर ये illusion है, ये सच नहीं है. One notion is that electronic management information systems keep better track of inputs and those aspects of personal that are EMIs visible. That means ये electronic EMIs here का बताया है कि जो हम देख सकते हैं, correct? The part of input that we can see, that is visible, and if that is there, then it can lead to better services. A recent study examined attempts to increase attendance of auxiliary nurse midwife at clinics in Rajasthan. So that involved high-tech time clocks to monitor attendance. तो ये एक टेक्नोलॉजी ने ट्राई किया कि कैन वी improve the attendance of these nurses at a clinic in Rajasthan using some high-tech device. The study's title says it all. Band-aids on a corpse. Band-aids on a corpse means if somebody has died, right? Putting a band-aid on him or her is not going to make any difference. So band-aids on a corpse means कि इससे कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ा. E-governance can be just as bad as any other governance when the real issue is people and their motivation. Okay, so e-governance में they are saying the real issue is not the technology, it's not the tracking, it is people and what they want, their motivation. For services to improve, the people providing the services have to want to do a better job with the skills they have, right? So obviously it's more a question of what people want to do. A study of medical care in Delhi found that even though providers in the public sector had better skills than private sector providers, their provision of care in actual practice was much worse because maybe they didn't have the intention. The public sector may people may have better skills, but as long as they don't want to, nobody can make them provide care. Okay. Next. In implementation intensive services, the key to success is face-to-face interactions between a teacher, a nurse, a policeman, an extension agent, and a citizen. Okay. So whenever you have an implementation-oriented thing, for success to take place, you have to have good face-to-face interactions. The relationship is about power. Amartya Sen's report on education in West Bengal had a supremely telling anecdote in which the villagers forced the teachers to attend school, but when the parents went off to work, the teacher did not teach but forced the children to massage his feet. As long as the system empowers providers over citizens, technology is irrelevant. So there was this story about people forcing teachers to come to school. The teacher, because they were forced, the teacher was coming, but as soon as the parents left, the teacher didn't teach. So intention is missing. The answer to successfully providing basic services is to create systems that provide both autonomy. Autonomy means that a person should have control over his her choice and accountability. तो accountability शायद technology ला सकता है, पर autonomy technology नहीं लाता है, right? In basic education, for instance, the answer to poor teaching is not controlling teachers more, right? तो ये accountability से सिर्फ आपके teachers better नहीं पढ़ाएंगी. The key is to hire teachers who want to teach and then give them autonomy, right? And then let them teach, expressing their professionalism and vocation as a teacher through autonomy in the classroom. This autonomy has to be matched with accountability for results. Not just narrowly measured through test scores, results should not be through test scores only, but broadly for the quality of the education they provide. A recent study in Uttar Pradesh showed that if somehow all civil service teachers could be replaced with contract teachers, the state could save $1 billion a year in revenue and double student learning. Just the additional autonomy and accountability of contracts through local groups, even without complementary system changes and information and empowerment, led to that much improvement. If you just replace all civil service teachers with a contract teacher, okay, तो पैसे भी बचेंगे और student learning भी double हो जाएगा. Why? Because ये contract से accountability आता है, and because they are more accountable teachers, there's autonomy also. So the first step to being part of the solution is to create performance information accessible to those outside of the government. If you want the performance of people to improve, you have to ensure that this information is accessible by people outside of the government, right? So now let's look at questions. In the context of the passage, we can infer that the title Band-Aids on a Corpse, मतलब right, कोई मर गया है, उस पे बैंडेड लगाने से कुछ फायदा नहीं है, suggests कि कुछ फायदा नहीं है, right? So the nurses were too poorly trained. Training के बारे में कुछ बात नहीं हुआ है, out of scope. Was a superficial solution. Yes, कुछ फायदा नहीं हुआ है, so B looks good, right? B looks good. The nurses attended the clinics, but the clinics में क्या equipment था? Nothing has been spoken about. The clinics were better funded, but performance monitoring did not result in any improvement. Okay, so point is, this may seem good, but funding का बात नहीं हुआ है. So best is saying that it didn't help. Answer is option B. According to the author, service delivery in Indian education can be improved in all of the following ways except, correct? So it can be improved with the use of technology because accountability is a part. It's not only accountability, but accountability is a part. और technology से accountability बढ़ता है, correct? Motivated teachers, of course, इससे autonomy है, intention है. So this is also good in improving education. Information को बाहर access करने दो, right? This is given right at the end here. कि accessible to those outside of the government. तो ABC तीनों का जिक्र हुआ है. What has not been spoken about is eliminating government involvement. ऐसा नहीं है कि government should not be involved only, right? We need systems. The information, performance information should be made accessible, right? So answer is option D. Which of the following, if true, would undermine the passage's main argument? So what is the main argument, right? That you need autonomy also, that you need the intention also, correct? If absolute instead of moderate technological surveillance is exercised over the performance of service providers, इससे तो आपका टेक्नोलॉजी और बढ़ रहा है and you are not able to say कि performance बढ़ेगा कि नहीं. So this will not help. Empowerment of service provider leads to increased complacency and rigged performance results. तो अगर हम autonomy देते हैं, okay, और उससे कुछ फायदा नहीं होता है, so then what the author is saying has to be wrong because autonomy has not helped. So B is looking very good to undermine, right? Let's keep B. C, if it were proven that increase in autonomy leads to an exponential increase, this will strengthen the main point. It will not undermine, it will strengthen. If it were proven that service providers have better skills than those in the private compared to those in the public, this is just one of the points mentioned, right? It's about autonomy versus accountability, not private versus public, and about undermining, correct? So answer best is option B, right? Next question, the author questions the use of monitoring systems in services that involves face-to-face interaction between service providers and clients because such systems, तो वो question क्यों कर रहा है, correct? When you have these systems to monitor, like the nurse का monitoring हुआ था, the thing is कि इससे there is no improvement in outcomes. It's like band-aid on corpse, right? कुछ फायदा नहीं होता है. So do not improve services. That is true. ये दिया है कि कुछ फायदा नहीं होता है. Are not नहीं. Public sector, private sector में there is no distinction made. Improve the skills, but do not increase the motivation of service providers. Yes, it does not increase the motivation. This part is true. But how does it improve skills? It just monitors whether work is done or not. So this part is not true. So that's why C is going to be out. Are ineffective because they're managed by the government. Because they're managed, the government is not contributing to the effectiveness or ineffectiveness, right? So sab mila ke answer has to be option A, right? The main purpose of the passage is to, what is the main purpose, guys? Is it to say that the government should not be involved? Is it to critique the government's involvement? No. Is it to argue that some types of services can be improved? Yes, it's saying, right, main purpose is कि accountability के साथ साथ you need to have autonomy. Right? Besides accountability, you need to also have autonomy. That is the main point of the passage. So, B is looking good. Analyze the shortcomings of government appointed nurses and their management through technology. Okay, so government appointed nurses का तो कुछ है ही नहीं. It was just a general nurse का thing done, right? So C is also not going to work. Find a solution. There's no solution found for education or anything, right? It's just about saying that autonomy is important. So best is answer B, right? Not a very difficult passage. Answers were also pretty clear. Okay, so this passage should have been attempted, right? Great. Grove snails as a whole are distributed all over Europe, but a specific variety of the snail with a distinctive white-lipped shell is found exclusively in Ireland and in the Pyrenees Mountains that lie on the border between France and Spain. Okay, so these grove snails are there throughout Europe, but only the white-lipped shell is found in 2 places. The researchers sampled a total of 423 snail specimens, okay, 36 sites पे, with an emphasis on gathering large, इस पे ज़्यादा as many of the white lip variety as possible. ये बहुत ज़्यादा they collected, okay. When they sequenced genes from the mitochondrial DNA of each of these snails and used algorithm to analyze the genetic diversity between them, they found that a distinct lineage, right? Which one is a distinct one? The one with the white-lipped shells were indeed endemic. मतलब वो वहाँ पे ही पाए गए थे. Endemic here means that they were found there. Origin उनका उधर है. To the 2 very specific and distant places in question. So they did a lot of research, right, of these different snails across Europe, and they sampled a total of 423 snail specimens. Okay, and they found that this white-lipped variety was available, correct, only in these 2 places. Okay, and when they did genetic diversity also, they found only these 2 places these white snails were available. Explaining this is tricky. So it's not easy to explain, right? Previously, some had speculated that the strange distributions of creatures, such as the, could be explained by convergent evolution, in which 2 populations evolve the same trait by coincidence. Okay, so this convergent evolution means that 2 jagah se they are converging to the same genetic trait by coincidence. But the underlying genetic similarities, baki bhi genetic similarities, not just the white lip part, right? Between the 2 groups rules that out. So convergent evolution to nahi ho sakta. Alternately, some scientists had suggested that the white-lipped variety had simply spread over the whole continent. Okay, but baki sab jagah pe it was wiped out. It was wiped out everywhere else besides Ireland and the Pyrenees. यहाँ पे ये बच गया था. But the researchers say that sampling and subsequent DNA analysis eliminate that possibility also. तो एक हमें पहले result दिया, right? फिर यहाँ पे 2 explanations दिए, and then they are saying ये दोनों explanation does not work. Convergent evolution does not work, right? ये wide over the whole continent में से elimination everywhere else does not work. If the snails naturally colonized Ireland, you would expect to find some of the same genetic type in other areas of Europe, especially Britain. We just don't find them, that Davidson said. तो ये continuation हो रहा है, second explanation क्यों नहीं हो सकता है इसका, correct? Moreover, if they had gradually spread across the continent, there would be some genetic variation within the white-lipped type because evolution would introduce variety. Over the thousands of years, it would have taken them to spread from the Pyrenees to Ireland. तो अगर वो धीरे-धीरे बढ़ते तो थोड़ा उन पे genetic variation होता, but that variation does not exist, at least in the genes sampled. This means that rather than the organism gradually expanding its range, large populations instead were somehow moved So instead of small population going here and there and changing things, large populations were moved pura ke pura, correct, to the other location within the space of a few dozen generations, ensuring a lack of genetic variety. There is a very clear pattern which is difficult to explain except by involving humans, Davidson said. Humans, after all, colonized Ireland roughly 9,000 years ago, and the oldest fossil evidence dates to roughly the same era. So, this pattern, the author is saying, cannot be explained naturally. You have to involve human beings in it. तो ह्यूमन बींग्स भी 9,000 पहले आयरलैंड पहुंचे और ये स्नेल्स भी 9,000 पहले ही आयरलैंड पहुंचे. Additionally, there is archaeological evidence of early sea trade between the ancient people of Spain and Ireland via the Atlantic, and even evidence that humans routinely ate these types of snail before the advent of agriculture, as their burnt shells have been found in Stone Age trash heaps. Okay, so human beings are involved basically. They must have traveled with human beings, or human beings were eating them, so they must have taken them. So, what is the simplest explanation then? Boats. These snails may have inadvertently traveled on the floor of the small coast-hugging skiffs. Skiffs is a type of boat these early humans used for travel, or they may have been intentionally carried to Ireland by the seafarers खाने के लिए as a food source. तो या तो unintentionally वो floor में घुस गए and they were carried to the other region, या they were taken as a food source. The highways of the past was these rivers and oceans, as the rivers that flank the Pyrenees. That was an ancient trade route to the Atlantic. What we're actually seeing might be the long-lasting legacy of snails that hitched a ride as humans traveled from the south of France to Ireland 8,000 years ago, Davidson said. So, sub explanation के बाद finally they are saying कि explanation are human beings. We carried them from Pyrenees to Ireland. Okay, great. Let's look at questions. All of the following evidence supports the passage explanation of sea travel trade except. So, what is the explanation here? The explanation here is that we used to eat it. So, the human beings took it from one place to the other, or they just traveled in the boat. The coincidental evidence of similar traits because of no convergent evolution was given as an explanation, but later they said कि ये explanation काम नहीं करता है. So this does not support the sea travel explanation. ये दूसरा explanation है. So this is good. The oldest fossil evidence dates back this हाँ कि ये 9,000 पहले हम भी आयरलैंड पहुंचे और snails भी आयरलैंड पहुंचे. So this helps in that explanation. So we can eliminate it. We want something that does not help. Absence of genetic variation, right, ensures कि ये convergent evolution नहीं हो सकता. So this also helps. Archaeological evidence ये help करता है कि हाँ ये sea से गए होंगे. So all of these help except option A. That is your answer, right? The passage outlines several hypotheses and evidence related to white-lipped grove snails to arrive at the most convincing explanation for. तो किसके लिए हमें explanation मिला है? Correct? Why the white-lipped were wiped out everywhere except in Ireland and the Pyrenees. It is not about wiped out. Correct? We don't know whether they were wiped out everywhere or not. We just know that they are available. They can be found there. Nothing about wiped out is mentioned. कि बाकी सब जगह थे and then they were wiped out. No. Independently evolved? No. They evolved together. They have similar traits, right? So B is also out. It is not independent evolution. Are found only in Ireland. That is true, right? That they are only available in these two places. So C is looking good. How the white-lipped independently evolved? Again, there is no independent evolution. So answer is option C. Right? Why or how ka bhi issue. So it is not right. It's mostly the why that is important. 8th question. Which one of the following makes the author eliminate convergent evolution as a probable explanation? So how can we eliminate convergent evolution? Because there are a lot of genetic similarities. The absence of genetic variation, that's it, right? Yeah, there is not too much variation. There's a lot of similarities. So A is looking good. The absence of genetic similarities नहीं variation, right? तो इसमें ये एक word twist किया है. तो B has to be eliminated. The coincidental evolution नहीं, ये coincidence से नहीं हुआ है. It is because of travel. Distinct lineage कौन सा lineage has not been spoken about, right? So answer is option A. In paragraph 4, the evidence that humans routinely ate these types of snails before the advent of agriculture can be used to conclude that. Correct? Because we used to routinely eat them, we took them as food when we traveled from Pyrenees to Ireland. May admirably traveled on the fort, yes, but it doesn't talk about eating. Eating means we took it purposefully, not without. Inadvertently means ke galti se. It is not galti se. We took them purposefully. Who travel might have carried as edibles, as food. Yes, so this is very good. Facilitated trade, ye kuch nahi. Yeah, we were not trading in these snails, right? Traveled, yes, this is true, but eating ke saath kuch lena dena nahi hai. So answer is option B. That talks about how we carried them for eating. Correct? So answer is B. Great, let's move on. Next passage. The complexity of modern problems often precludes any one person from fully understanding them. Factors contributing to rising obesity levels, for example, include transportation systems and infrastructure. Okay, so अभी problems के इतने layers हो गए, इतने complex हो गया कि one person cannot even fully understand one problem. For example, यहाँ पे example दिया है कि if you look at rising obesity, there are a lot of reasons why obesity is rising. कि transportation है, infrastructure है, media, because of the convenience foods, changing social norms, human biology is changing, ये सब वजह से obesity is increasing. कोई एक factor नहीं है. The multidimensional or layered character of complex problems also undermines the principle of meritocracy. कि ये जो example जो है, ये meritocracy के लिए भी है. The idea that the best person should be hired. What is the idea about merit? What is the principle of meritocracy? कि जो सबसे अच्छा है कोई काम के लिए उसको ही hire होना चाहिए. So the passage is saying कि there is no best person. When putting together an oncological research team, right? So research oncology is the research for disease. I think it's cancer, right? A biotech company such as Gilead or Genentech would not construct a multiple choice test and hire the top scorers. So there's no best person here कि तुमने बस एक चीज टेस्ट दिया और जिसमें वो जो उसमें बेस्ट है उसको हायर कर दिया, नहीं. Or hire people whose resumes score highest according to some performance criteria. Instead, they would seek diversity. So instead of looking for the best, you should seek diversity. They would build a team of people who bring diverse knowledge bases, tools, and analytic skills. Believers in a meritocracy might grant that teams ought to be diverse, but then argue that meritocratic principles should apply within each category. So, जो meritocracy में believe करते दिल से ठीक है, you have a point, diversity होना चाहिए. अब diversity में बताओ कौन से A, B, C group है, हर एक group पे you apply meritocracy. But the team should, and hence, they are saying, believers are saying, a team should consist of the best mathematicians, the best oncologists, the best biostatisticians from within the pool. That is a problem. That position suffers from a similar flaw. Even with a knowledge domain, no test or criteria applied to individuals will produce the best team. कोई टेस्ट से तुम्हें सबसे अच्छा टीम नहीं मिलेगा. ओके, अच्छा पर्सन मिल सकता है पर टीम नहीं बन सकता. Each of these domains possesses such depth and breadth that no test can exist. Consider the field of neuroscience. तो ये दूसरा example है. एक तो obesity, neuroscience. Upwards of 50,000 papers were published last year covering various technique, domains of inquiries and levels of analysis ranging from molecules and synapses up through networks of neurons. Given that complexity, any attempt to rank a collection of neuroscientists from best to worst as if they were competitors in the 50-meter butterfly must fail. तो इतना कॉम्प्लेक्स है, इट्स नॉट एज इफ पीपल आर रनिंग अ रेस और जो रेस में फर्स्ट आया वो जीता, इतना इजी नहीं है, करेक्ट? बिकॉज ये इतना कॉम्प्लेक्स है, a simple test is not going to work. What could be true is that given a specific task and the composition of a particular team, करेक्ट, कि टास्क क्या है और बाकी टीम में कौन से लोग हैं, one scientist would be more likely to contribute than another. Optimal hiring depends on context. Optimal teams will be diverse. Okay, who you select depends on who else is there. करेक्ट? तो जो कॉन्टेक्स्ट है उस पे आपका हायरिंग होगा और आपकी टीम डाइवर्स भी होगी उस हिसाब से, करेक्ट? ग्रेट. Evidence for this claim can be seen in the way that papers and patents that combine diverse ideas tend to rank as high impact. कि जहाँ पे diversity ज़्यादा है वो पेपर का impact ज़्यादा है. It can also be found in the structure of the so-called random decision forest, a state-of-the-art machine learning algorithm. This is another example. Neuroscience, right? Machine learning. Random forests consist of ensembles of decision trees. If classifying pictures, right, each tree makes a vote. Is that a picture of a fox or a dog? The dog and fox look similar, right? So you classify each tree, makes say, okay, this is dog, this is fox, and then you take a weighted majority. A weighted majority rules. रैंडम फॉरेस्ट कैन सर्व मेनी एम्स, तो बहुत सारे चीजों में काम आ सकते हैं, नॉट जस्ट पिक्चर क्लासिफिकेशन. दे कैन आइडेंटिफाई बैंक फ्रॉड एंड डिजीजेस, रेकमेंड सीलिंग फैंस एंड प्रेडिक्ट ऑनलाइन डेटिंग. तो ये डाइवर्स यूजेस बताए हैं कि बैंक फ्रॉड है, ऑनलाइन डेटिंग है, सब जगह पे यू कैन यूज रैंडम फॉरेस्ट, राइट? ऑनलाइन डेटिंग बिहेवियर एज वेल. When building a forest, you do not select the best trees because they will make similar classifications. You want diversity. Okay? Programmers achieve that diversity by training each tree on different data. अलग अलग डेटा पे हर एक ट्री को ट्रेन करते हैं. This technique is known as bagging. They also boost the forest cognitively by training trees on the hardest case. Okay? तो एक तो different data पर वो hard data होता है. Those that the current forest gets wrong. This ensures even more diversity and accurate forest. Yet the fallacy of meritocracy persists. Corporations, non-profits, governments, universities and even preschools test, score and hire the best. ये एक मेरिटोक्रेसी चलता नहीं है, फिर भी लोग मेरिटोक्रेसी के पीछे भागते हैं. Everywhere, corporation है, government है, university, everyone is scoring and hiring the best. This all but guarantees not creating the best team. तो इससे best team नहीं बनता है. Ranking people by common criteria produces homogeneity. That's not likely to lead to breakthroughs. Okay, when you get people, common people, using some common criteria, they are not going to be different, they are going to be similar, right? Great, let's look at questions. The author critiques meritocracy for all of the following reasons except. So, why does the author not like meritocracy? वो आंसर को एलिमिनेट करना है, right? Because you want the except वाला answer. Okay. Modern problems are multifaceted and require varied skill sets to be solved. So I need diversity. I don't need meritocracy, right? So it critiques. तो ये आंसर नहीं हो सकता. Diversity and context specificity are important for making major advances in any field. Yes, that's why meritocracy is not good. So I can eliminate this. Criteria designed to assess merit are insufficient to test expertise in any field of knowledge because it is so diverse, right? वो बताया गया था कि मैथ्स में इतने अलग अलग पेपर्स न्यूरोसाइंस में भी है. It's very tough to test, correct? An ideal team comprises of best individuals. ये best individuals is not critiquing, so answer is option D, right? Which of the following conditions would weaken the efficacy of a random decision forest? So random decision forest means कि सब अलग अलग data पे bag होता है and they are trained using difficult sets. If a large number were trained on easy cases, तो ये तो problem हो गया ना? You cannot train them on easy cases. But train on data derived from easy and hard. This is good. Okay, so this will strengthen their efficiency. This above A will weaken. If the type were double, type of decision trees, ensembles, इसके बारे में कुछ बात नहीं हुआ है passage में. So answer is option A. Which of the following conditions, if true, would invalidate the passage's main argument? Main argument ये है कि meritocracy does not work. You have to look at diversity. Does not work. If assessment tests were made more extensive and rigorous. No, they are not saying that assessment test is the problem. Right? If top scorers possess multidisciplinary knowledge that enable them to look at a problem from several perspectives. Oh, if this is possible, if top scorers can also see different perspectives, then best is equal to diverse. And this will invalidate, sorry. So B is looking good, we'll keep B. If it were proven that teams characterized end up being conflicted and take a long time to arrive at a solution, but फिर भी solution आ तो रहा है ना, शायद आप diversity ना लो तो solution आए ही नहीं. So this is not helpful. Were developed that proved to be more effective. Oh, this is also out. Correct answer has to be option B. Yes. Next. On the basis of the passage, which of the following themes is likely to be most effective in solving the problem of rising obesity levels? I need a multi-layered team. So nutritionist चाहिए, psychologist चाहिए, urban planner and media personal. Because ये सब दिया है ना कि media is a cause, infrastructure is a cause, psychological landscape has changed, convenience food is a cause. So ये सब handles all that. Who have each scored a distinction. मतलब we are looking at best scorers. We don't want best scorers. Right? ये भी team comprised, एक तो comprised does not take off. तो cat ने गलती की है. It just says comprised. Comprises, a team comprising. Who have each performed well. Performed well is okay. Distinction is top scorer. ये है perform well is fine. Right? सिर्फ nutritionist लेके कुछ होगा नहीं. उसको machine learning में क्या करेंगे हम, right? And top nutritionist को तो लेना ही नहीं है, वो again best हो जाएगा. तो A, C, D cancel हो जाता है and you're only left with option B. Right? Which of the following best describes the purpose of the example of neuroscience? It is that any field is so vast that it's difficult to test whether someone knows enough or not, right? So in the modern age, every field of knowledge is so vast that a meaningful assessment of merit is impossible. Right? So it is impossible. This is very good according to what is mentioned. Unlike other fields of knowledge, neuroscience is an exceptionally complex field, making a meaningful assessment of neuroscientists impossible. Right? ऐसा कुछ नहीं है कि meaningful assessment impossible is just too harsh. In narrow fields of knowledge has always been possible. Yeah, but this goes against our example. Neuroscience is not narrow. Neuroscience is an advanced because of its connections. No, ऐसा इसका कुछ connection का बात नहीं हुआ है. So best is answer A. Right? Great. Some 3 questions of verbal we'll do from the same paper. Right? All of these are odd one out. As India looks to increase the number of cities, our urban planning must factor in potential natural disasters and work out contingencies in advance. Authorities must revise data and upgrade infrastructure and mitigation plans even if their local area hasn't been visited by a calamity yet. So ये दोनों का connection है. Correct? Potential disaster or urban planning, ये सब connected है. Extreme temperatures, droughts and forest fires have more than doubled. Okay. There is no denying the fact that our baseline normal weather is changing. It is no longer a question of whether, but rather when. If you see, this is connected to 1 and 2. कि अभी potential natural disaster होने वाला तो है. Correct? And why? Because the weather is changing. So 4 and 5 are also connected. What is not connected is 3. 3 is not connected. It's a specific example given. Right? उसका तो कुछ बात हुआ नहीं. तो answer here is option 3. Great. Let's look at the next one. Much has been recently discovered about the development of songs in birds. Some species are restricted to a single song. Others have a range of songs. The most important auditory stimuli for the birds are the sounds of other birds. For all bird species, there is a prescribed path to development of the final song. A bird begins with a sub-song, passes through plastic song until it achieves the species song. So, song, 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 sounds. And which is a stimuli? If you see, correct? Stimuli का कुछ बात अभी तक in other sentences नहीं हुआ है. So the best is option 3. It is not connected. Everything is talking about development of song, single song, double song, this, that. Right? So answer is option 3 because 3 ka stimuli, sounds, this has not been spoken about. Okay. Our smartphones can now track our diets, our biological cycles, even our digestive systems and sleep patterns. Researchers have even coined a new term, orthosomnia, to describe the insomnia brought on by paying too much attention to smartphones and sleep tracking apps. Sleep, nature's soft nurse, is a blissful, untroubled state, all too easily disturbed by earthly worries or a guilty conscience. Guilty conscience. अभी तक इसका बात नहीं हुआ है, right? Existence of a market for such apps is unsurprising. Shift work, a long hours culture, and blue light from screens that have conspired to rob many of us of sufficient rest. A new threat to good night's rest has emerged: smartphones with sleep tracking apps. So ये 5 if you see sleep tracking apps connected to 1, connected to 2, and apps 4 also. What sleep is out of context here. So 3 is odd one out here. Correct? Guilty conscience, earthly worries, all this is out of context. So answer is option 3. Right? Great. Let's move on to the bonus passage. The demand for electricity in certain countries has been projected recently to grow by 50% by the year 2010. Unfortunately, the increased use of fossil fuels to generate this electricity may ultimately damage human and environmental health. For example, emissions of air pollutants in these countries are expected to double over the next 25 years. Even if energy is used efficiently, so that local urban air quality will likely deteriorate. Renewable sources of electricity such as solar, radiation, wind, and water power are possible solutions to the problems caused by increasing demand for electricity. तो इलेक्ट्रिसिटी का डिमांड बढ़ रहा है, करेक्ट, पर इससे डैमेज भी बढ़ रहा है इफ यू यूज फॉसिल फ्यूल्स, मतलब पेट्रोल एंड ऑल. तो एमिशंस ऑफ एयर पोल्यूटेंट्स एटसेट्रा इज गोइंग टू इंक्रीज as long as you use petrol. Unlike fossil fuels, renewable energy sources are available in virtually all geographic regions, and they allow electricity production without dangerous environmental pollutants, right? So if you go ahead with these renewable energy sources, correct, so without pollution ये आप use कर सकते हो. Additionally, these sources can usually be located closer to consumers, right, instead of the plants that use fossil fuels, and you can reduce transmission and distribution cost. Technologies for the successful long-term exploitation of these resources, however, are not always implemented successfully. Okay. In rural Brazil, for example, millions of citizens do not have electricity, and the lack of necessary infrastructure has limited efforts to provide it. So, Brazil में सबके पास electricity नहीं है. In 1992, an energy agency from the United States developed a joint project with 2 Brazilian states to install 800 households and train local personnel to service them. Under the project's terms, local utilities to install, maintain, and own the systems and collect fees from users. Backers hope the project would attract enough private investment for substantial expansion throughout Brazil. But the project directors rejected the relatively high bids of local Brazilian companies to produce the solar collectors, and thus missed an opportunity to stimulate local production. So they thought कि 800 जो है ये प्रोजेक्ट किया 800 लोगों के लिए, correct? Local utilities will install, maintain, and own and collect fees, but ये local companies से produce नहीं करवाएं. Consequently, a short-term savings in startup costs precluded the long-term benefits deriving from the development of local production. जब आप locally produce नहीं करते तो शायद आप शुरू में थोड़ा सेव करते हो पर long term आपका नुकसान ही है. Okay, which eventually would have led to independence from costly foreign expertise. अगर आप locally बनाते तो सबका expertise बढ़ता और धीरे धीरे आपका ये cost foreign का कम हो जाता. As a result, participating utilities can generate only enough income to cover operating and maintenance costs, which makes further investment and expansion unlikely. तो आप ज़्यादा income फिर generate नहीं कर पाते हो. Thus, the movement towards a sustainable rural electricity system in Brazil remains stalled, मतलब रुक गया है. But some efforts have avoided these pitfalls. In the mid-1980s, a Danish energy agency helped agencies in India build 3 modern wind turbine plants and gradually develop local technical capacity. The local people were involved. They were trained in planning, operation, maintenance, and construction of turbines. Indian firms subsequently began manufacturing turbines, and as more locally manufactured equipment became available, Indian utilities were able to increase the use of wind energy profitably. तो पहले बाहर से आया था टेक्नोलॉजी तो थोड़ा कम प्रॉफिट था पर धीरे धीरे वो बढ़ता गया. The success of these small projects spurred enthusiasm. Indian utilities were soon ordering more equipment and private investment in wind energy surged. Because the Danish agency, unlike its US counterpart, recognized the importance of local investment at all levels, the project has a good chance of remaining competitive and profitable for the long run. So this is about how if you involve local people, right, for these alternative energy sources, it is going to be competitive and profitable for the long run. Which of the following expresses the main point? While some later efforts to implement have been plagued and eventually halted, early relying more heavily enjoyed a large degree of success. Early वाला ब्राजील का था जो स्टॉल हुआ. Okay, mid 1980s जो है वो that is actually earlier than the 1992. Correct? So let's keep this right now because the earlier one was the India one. Investors should consider only financial, not only but also potential gains. इसके बारे में बात नहीं हुआ है कि तुम environmental health और human health के gain के बारे में भी सोचो. That has not been spoken about. Renewable energy resources represent a promising means for addressing many countries' energy demands and environmental concerns. Can be implemented most effectively in countries that have continuing access. वो बोलता है कि नहीं foreign investment को access मत करो. तो C is also gone. Though renewable energy sources represent a promising means for meeting the rising energy demands, the exploitation is unlikely to succeed unless long-term local participation at all levels is seen as integral to renewable energy projects. Promising means है, correct? पर ये exploit करने के लिए you have to involve. So D is looking best. Right? Certain types, such as wind-generated electricity, are more likely to be successful than other types. But continued investment पर कौन एक type का ज़्यादा है या दूसरे type का ज़्यादा है, not spoken about. It is A or D. Okay. तो relying जो local involvement बाद में आता है, शुरू में नहीं आता है. So if you see A, it says that the local involvement अभी आ रहा है. Where is the pen? हाँ. So between A and D, D is better because D clearly gets the main point across. Instead of involving later, earlier, पूरा halt हुआ है, it is extreme, right? So D is best. Based on the information in the passage, which are the following statements regarding would the author be most likely to agree? Wind कहाँ पे, sorry, solar कहाँ पे use हुआ? Brazil में. Despite previous difficulties, these systems can be implemented in many countries. We don't know. We want to show कि आपको एक्सपर्टीज को लोकल करना है. Though these systems do not produce pollutants, they must be seen as an impractical. Why impractical? Correct? It's a practical substitute. Would be more effectively employed in densely populated areas than in rural areas. Population का तो कुछ बात नहीं हुआ है. Are more costly to install, operate and maintain than our wind energy systems. We'll keep this. We'll go and check. Until long-term functioning is demonstrated, they cannot be considered a viable. No, ऐसा कुछ long-term functioning का बात नहीं हुआ है. Right? If you see solar and wind, solar के लिए there is a lot of expense, as you can see here. That's why they got the expertise from outside, right? So answer has to be option B. The author mentions which one of the following in the passage. What does the author mention? A specific of that relies on fossil fuels. Specific example तो नहीं बोला है. That successfully utilize a local manufacturer. Yes. Added transmission costs, ये भी बताया गया है. Approximate size of a community, that also has been said. Approximate number of years, is that given clearly? No. So this is not given. Size of a community has not been given. Added transmission cost ये दिया है. A is also not given, B is also not given. So answer is option C. The author's attitude towards the directors of the Brazil project can most accurately be described as. So he didn't like the fact that they got expertise from outside. So it is disapproving of their heavy dependence on no, because they got foreign, not private. Surprise in the quality of, no, he's not surprised about that. He's saying कि तुम्हें ensure करना था कि long term Brazil से हो पाता. Critical in overemphasizing the importance of reducing, yes. If they are reducing abhi ka cost, long term they will still have cost. So critical is good. Outrage is too extreme. और humanitarian goals का बात नहीं हुआ है. So D is also out. There is no desire questioning, so E is also out. Answer here is option C. In the passage, the author is primarily concerned with, okay, why should we go for local production? Should be used in explaining why cannot be implemented profitably. Is looking good. Is looking good. What factors will favor their successful implementation? Except local production, हर एक factor का कुछ बात नहीं हुआ है. So B is out. Of adopting by summarizing how they have been implemented. No. ये advantage has not been illustrated by summarizing. Correct? So C is out. Comparing and contrasting two types. No, not at all. दो type तो नहीं है. Discussing two types of renewable energy resources and analyzing why one of them is more easily. What is easily implementable? Not given. So E is also out. Best here is option A. Right? The author's discussion is intended primarily to, okay, to say that please आप locally सब बनाओ. Substantiate the claim that demand will climb. नहीं, ये तो बोला है. He's not trying to prove this. Okay, so A is out. Undermine the claim used as an effective means of addressing. No, it is more about alternative fuels, not efficient energy use. B is also out. Specify the time frame within which it will be necessary to develop renewable energy technology. So if you look at the time frame, correct? So time frame has not been mentioned. Offer evidence for the claim or a problematic source. Not at all. ये शुरू में थोड़ा बोला है, but that is not the primary reason. Foreshadow a claim. This is great. कि local people को involve करना पड़ेगा. Foreshadow means predict. So answer is E. Would most call into question the profitability. So what is the last sentence? एक बार देख लेते हैं. The project remaining competitive because recognize the importance of local involvement. Would most call into question the author's assertion in the last sentence. Profitability of the Indian project was due primarily to temporary subsidies. So it was not because of any temporary subsidies, correct? But if the profitability was because of that, then you can question the long-term profitability. Invested more funds in the India project. It's not about investing funds. Are not required to limit user fees. नहीं, ऐसा कुछ चार्जिंग के बारे में नहीं बोला है. Are produced in the pollutants also played no role. Is poised to decrease sharply. Its pollutants played no role. So answer is option A. The subsidies played a role. Right? So great, guys. Now I'll see you again. But before that, here is your bonus puzzle. KS is a Fibonacci sequence, and you have to find out the value of S, given that it is a summation of a Fibonacci and a GP. So do give this some thought. If you have been through my previous videos, we have spoken about AGP, which is an arithmetic geometric puzzle. That will help you here, right? I'll see you again, guys, tomorrow when we do the remaining part of VARC and one more bonus passage. But before that, guys, please ensure that you enroll for the National Scholarship Test. Become a part of Unacademy. It has one of the best environments to prepare for your exam, right? You have live classes, live doubt solving classes. You have great content followed with awesome feedback by teachers, right? So we really look at best approaches to solving questions. We look at which questions to solve, etc. Right? So YouTube से कहीं ज़्यादा आपको मिलता है Unacademy में, guys. So don't think twice before subscribing. Which subscription to go for? If you're focused on CAT 20, you can go for the 6-month subscription because there are a lot of exams till May, June तक आपके exams चलते रहेंगे, management entrance exam. अगर आपको CAT 21 पे focus है, तो please look at the 2-year subscription, right? You can use my code Munira